So, how does one face hate with compassion? How does one meet someone who is dead set on hating you or somebody else? Um, and show them that not only is there another way, but that you are strong even though you come at them with compassion. Now, hatred by nature is lacking in a willingness to understand, a willingness to see your point of view if it is peaceful, to see your point of view if they hate you, if you are the target of their hate. And really, hatred isn't necessarily a target that is external in source, but it comes from an inability or a fear within producing the hatred. So the hatred that is projected outward has really doesn't have very much to do with you or somebody else. It's a fear, a misunderstanding, and an unwillingness to see somebody else's point of view, or at least try to see. Even if you end up disagreeing with them, to try and see somebody else's point of view, there's something very important to be said for that. Because if you try to see somebody else's point of view, then you show yourself to be, not just to other people, but to yourself. You say, okay, at least I tried. At least I tried to understand what this person was about and tried to connect with them. And then if I couldn't, that's fine. I don't have to know them. I don't have to talk to them. And I can still, fight against them. Maybe not literally, maybe sometimes literally, but not literally the way that I'm talking about. You can fight against them in virtue. As a human being, you can approach them in society and debate them, or say, okay, their way is not the way, and the way is compassion. The way is an attempt at continued cooperation between human beings on this plane of existence. And I'll give an example. This is an extreme example, but it's an example nonetheless. Now, if you are if you encounter an ISIS fighter, or an ISIS propagandist, and ISIS is of course a Muslim extremist group. If you encounter them online, they will obviously have a lot of hateful messages to throw at you, and you may feel the need to rebuff them, to not necessarily just say, oh, you're screwed up, oh, you don't deserve to talk, but just try and come back at them with something that might either spark something within, their compassion within, or show to other people that are in a chat group that they actually don't try and find other ways. They choose violence because they want to, because they truly believe that, well, it's not even that they truly believe that, but they truly want to be violent. They want to believe that their way is the only way, and they're afraid that somebody else's way might be worth considering, or that they might be wrong to such an extent that they're willing to kill other people. And a lot of it's frustration with themselves as far as their own lacking before they joined ISIS, or in whatever society they were in before they went to the extremist group of ISIS. And when you make your points online, and if you feel like you have to, and then it becomes apparent that they aren't interested in considering other people's point of view, like is very likely with ISIS propagandists, then you've basically done your job, or you've done your act that you felt you had to do, and there's no need to carry that with you afterwards. Just say, okay, I said what I needed to say, and don't use derogatory language, or language that just has nothing to do with your point, has more to do with just calling names, because there's nothing going to come of that. But if you prove them wrong with your ideology, with your understanding, then it will have far more effect on people in the chat room, and it might even have effect on them. So that's one way that you can meet hate with, or face hate with compassion. Another way is more common, day-to-day life. On the streets, let's say somebody accidentally bumps into you or cuts you off. Or maybe they did it on purpose. Maybe they bumped into you because they didn't like the way you looked at them or whatever. And they bump into you. And they're like, what the hell? Why did you bump into me? Why don't you get out of the way? You could be like, I didn't mean to bump into you, man. I will continue about my business. Why don't you do the same? You don't have to be submissive, and you don't have to be hateful or aggressive. There's a middle ground that allows you to keep your dignity, that allows you to still be not only a dignified person, but somebody who is shown to be strong enough to where that person might not want to mess with you. But even if you have no chance of showing that you can defend yourself or that you're not somebody to be messed with, just state plainly and clearly. That is the best way to go about it. That is the best way to approach and face hatred with compassion. Say, look, man, I think that you bumped into me, and I don't want any part of whatever you're trying to start. So I'm going to go about my business, and goodbye. Continue walking. This works when you're having road rage as well. Especially if you're in a city and you're constantly cut off, or there's people trying to cut you off, people yelling out their windows. If you respond emotionally, not necessarily by getting out of the car, but just mentally, you get pissed off. You're like, what the hell's the problem? What is wrong with you? Why did you cut me off? Can't you see that I was obviously ahead of you? This or that, doesn't matter. Mentally, the best way to respond is to say, okay, I don't know what this person is going through, and I'm not going to give them a single ounce of my emotional commitment to where I get frustrated, towards they actually cause frustration within me. They actually cause some emotional reaction. I'm instead going to continue on and just go to where I need to go, and try to keep your mind to a level status. Because in situations like that, as human beings, unless you train yourself constantly to where it's easier, you will respond with emotion, and that'll be aggressive emotion or negative emotion. It's not always about starting fights or whatever, but that negative emotion that you respond with actually sticks with you. And anybody who has road rage a lot, who is conscious of their thoughts, can attest to the fact that you will be angry or depressed a lot of the time if you succumb to people's aggressive advances, even on the freeway. Now, I've named something to do with ideology, another thing to do with modern day life. I'd like to, as my third example on how to face hatred with compassion, an inner example, completely separate from external communication with other people. Now, this is communication with different parts of yourself. Now, if you are frustrated with life, if life seems like everyone else is either trying to get you, or you can't connect with anybody, or you just disagree with society, you don't like the way it's operating, you feel like there is a disconnect between you and everyone else, and there's a big chance that hatred will pop up in you, looking to be embraced, if you feel this frustration with society, or you feel like you can't connect with people, or you feel like everything is just operating incorrectly and unfairly, unjustly. There's a very large chance that if I was going to throw a number out there, I'd say like 75% at least, man, because this frustration is very common in human society in general, and this frustration within is probably one of the most dangerous, because not even necessarily for other people, but for our own state of being, because a lot of the time we think that what we think mentally, what we entertain mentally, the hate that we just kind of let boil in our minds, we often think, oh, it's just in our heads, it's not going to affect who we are, I'm not going to say anything in person. But in truth, that's where it all starts. Thoughts have power. The mind is a very powerful instrument in affecting your future and transforming the external world into what you want it to be, even if you're not conscious of that process. You can call it magic. That's magic with a CK at the end. You can call it a psychological process of self-fulfillment. You can call it a number of things. But the more you think about something, the more you entertain it and think that it doesn't matter just because you think about it, the more it is likely to affect you in your life. The more it is likely that you will become what you thought was irrelevant to think about, or what you thought wouldn't have an effect on you. If I constantly think that nobody understands me, and nobody even tries. Why can't people just try to understand me? Why can't they just give my thoughts and idea a chance? And I'd be happy to listen to them too. Why won't they just give me a chance? Why can't I get a voice in my class, at my job, with my family? Why isn't my voice heard? And then it goes from there in the mind. if it goes further, you can say, okay, obviously nobody cares about me. Why should I care about them? Constantly think that. And then it goes to, what am I going to do to them to make them realize that I matter just as much as everybody else? And then you end up blowing up eventually after you think that a bunch of times. And if you cycle these thoughts in your head over and over and over again, one of these steps at a time, takes a certain amount to build up into an explosion to where you just really are really angry and you come at your family with just verbal assaults and accusations, and you start yelling at people at your job or in class, or you meet people after class. And these are extreme examples I'm talking about. Not everybody just blows up, but the intensity and the frequency to which you think these thoughts will definitely affect how you act in the future. So to stem that kind of hatred, try to cut it out at its root within yourself. For instance, if you start thinking nobody else is like me, why won't they just give me a chance? You could say, okay, they just don't understand me. It's not really their fault. I'm just my own kind of unique. Everybody's unique. I don't have to have somebody else understand me in order for me to function around other people, just to communicate with them, to not necessarily need them to understand me, but just to communicate with them on the level that we meet at, the compromise. I say my bit, you say your bit, and we both consider each other in everyday conversation. And we might not understand each other, but that's okay. I'll continue communicating with people because that's what I should do. Not necessarily having to be understood, but that's what I should do. And then if you get frustrated with, you feel unjustly treated by society or, police or teachers, and you say, okay, I wear this, and people think all kinds of things because I wear this. If you're gothic, you could say you wear a bunch of leather, a bunch of black, and you give off this kind of dark aura, you think, and that's what people are seeing if in this example. And you're like, why do people think I'm dark? This is just me expressing myself. I'm obviously very sad. I'm just trying to show it, but also this is the kind of person that I am. And if people just accept that, then we can live in harmony. They don't have to be like me. Why do they look at me like that? Why do they talk to me like that? Why won't they accept me? And, why do they say that? And instead of running those thoughts in your head, you can say, okay, apparently it always starts with okay. Anyway, you can say, I don't really need to be accepted by people. There are different levels of acceptance, and if I show myself to be a good person despite, whatever fashion trend that I have, in whatever way that I communicate, just try to be nice to people, and I try to accept them for who they are and accept that their tastes might have certain ignorances towards how I dress or the kind of person that I try to be, and that is more on them, and I shouldn't let their ignorances affect how I view my connection to other people or affect what I think about the emotions that are conjured up when I don't feel accepted. I shouldn't allow whatever judgment that they have affect how I view myself or how I approach people in society or what I fear as far as being judged. That's a good set of thoughts to run through your head instead of the frustration with society and the feeling of non-acceptance and the anger turning to hatred because of that. And of course, the final example I'll explain something better than blowing up. And then this is like when you've gone to that example and you've run it, or maybe you accidentally do it. It's a bad day. It's not necessarily because these thoughts run through your head, but those old thoughts come to the forefront because it's a bad day and you get pissed off. And when you get pissed off, you might start to blow up. And then when you blow up, I would highly recommend you take a step back, because the back of our head, where our ego exists, you'll start to feel your consciousness kind of traveling through if you pay attention, and it's really hard to pay attention to these times when you really blow up with anger or hatred. You'll feel the mental activity move to the back of your head if you really focus on it. If you focus on what your mind is doing, and I have in the past, but it's very hard to notice that when you're angry. But if you do notice it, then it's best to just take a step back and really reconsider mentally. Just try to be more quiet. Don't try to, if you've already blown up a little bit, just kind of take a step back and say, I don't want to talk about it. Then just leave, or just if you have to be in the same room, just Say, I don't want to talk about it, man. Let's continue on. Something like that, and then you reconsider what's going on, try to reassess it. And these, if you've been thinking other positive thoughts, and you could bring these forward and really reconsider the situation. Or if you're about to blow up, you can say, never mind. It's as simple as that. You want to cut off the communication that you think is making you angry, that is going to make you blow up, and you just kind of want to move on, try to move on in the conversation, or kind of move on in the circumstances. If somebody cuts you off, you're thinking about honking your horn, you're thinking about speeding up, going past them, getting in front of them, just say, okay, look, whatever this person's problem is, I'm not going to make it an extension of my problem. I'm not going to make their problem my problem by allowing their activities to affect me. And now if it's in a situation where somebody really wants to get under your skin, they're trying to get you to blow up, and they're trying to get that reaction out of you, then I suggest you either walk away, or you say, look, I don't want to have anything to do with what you're trying to bring out of me. Just leave it alone. And if you don't leave it alone, I'm not going to talk to you, and I'm heading out, man. Or I'm going to do my best to ignore you. But if you don't allow me to ignore you, I am going to, and this is when it's okay to actually really, not necessarily blow up, but to talk sternly to them. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. That might be a little aggressive. Let me take that back. That might work. But you can say, I don't want to have this conversation. Don't make me have this conversation. You really want this reaction out of me. And if they continue and say, I don't have any part of this. If they continue to try and draw that out of you, that reaction, then eventually you'll have to just lay everything down and say, okay, I think you're doing this because of this, and I don't want to react to you and allow you to bring that out of me. So you need to back off. And then what you do from there is your mode of communication. You build off of who you are and how you talk and what you do. So that's kind of how I would end that blow up situation. Personal point of view, my opinion. How you communicate is highly individualized, so it's hard to cover everybody's communication with my examples. And there are many more instances in which hatred is hard to counter with compassion. But I hope that these have been interesting. I hope that everything that I've said has been at least a little bit helpful. If you have any questions about what kind of interactions I've been in, or what I've learned from them, or what I've learned overall, or you just want to continue the conversation, or you want to disagree with me, shoot it down in the comment section below. If this video is interesting at all, hit that thumbs up down there. It really helps the channel. And stay compassionate, my friends, and the world will be a better place, and you'll be a freer person. Thank you very much.